Welcome to the cookout, man. Hey, we excited about what we got going on. You know it's your boy, the Alex Mack. We got your boy, Dapper Dom here.
What up?
And we got us another special guest, man. We knocking it out of the park with the special guest. Hey, this month, it's Financial Literacy Month,
Yes,
all right?
sir.
And we got a guru here today. We got a published author here today. We got a financial expert here today. We got my man Doctor. Okay, got to put some respect on his name. We got my man Dr. Clement Ogunyemi. He is the founder and consultant CFO of 4Q Pro Financial. And they do financial work with nonprofits. They do financial work with athletes in terms of NIL, how to manage their money. But we're not done there yet. He also is the founder and president of the Ogunyemi Family Foundation that focuses on giving out scholarships as well as community development nationwide. Ladies, gentlemen, everyone around the world, we got the finance doctor, Dr. Clement Ogunyemi. Give him a round of applause. Give him a round of applause. Baby. How you feel to be at the cookout today, baby?
Man, I feel good, man.
Yes, sir.
I'm just Clement, man. Right?
Okay, hey, we just gonna call him Clement.
Set the bar super high.
Hey, I had to put some respect on your name. You come to the cookout, man. We got to make sure they recognize you properly, man.
But y'all already know, before we get into it, go ahead, that like, share, subscribe button. Each one reach one. What you tell them to do?
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Tell a friend to tell a friend. Hey, and whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on Apple or Spotify, hey, we appreciate you accepting our invitation to the cookout.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and if this is your first time pulling up to the cookout, we kick off every show with our segment, Chop It Up. Currently sponsored by Life, living in faith every day. Hey, but you already know.
Taking calls, baby.
We're taking calls. We will take a paid sponsorship. Matter of fact, we about to start calling y'all. How about that? We about to start calling
we
y'all.
about to shoot them shots, baby. They had that net wide open for us.
Yeah, but in this segment, we Alex and I, our guests, will typically like just catch up on things and talk about current events.
Yes,
But today, what I want to chop it up about is you mentioned that he provides consulting for student athletes, NIL. So I want to talk about this transfer portal for a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna give you my personal opinion, but then like where I want you to come in is, what advice would you give a student athlete on balancing trying to get financial gain, but then also finding the right school or system that fits their style of playability? Because my personal opinion, I feel like some kids shortchange themselves by focusing on, hey, how quick can I get to the money?
Right.
And they'll pick a school that it might have offered more money, but that culture, that system doesn't fit their style of play. And so that long-term goal of getting to the WNBA or the NBA is hindered because now I can't showcase my talents fully because I've chose a school solely based off money.
Yep. Man, so it's just like our everyday life, you know. I used to be an athlete. I used to get Dom buckets, by the way.
Hey, I knew you was going to say that.
You know, I used to terrorize Dom, man. That was crazy.
Dang.
You know, but
Y'all know. The listeners,
The smoke
and
is
watchers
real.
who hooped with us that watched this show, they already know.
Look,
Keep
I still
talking.
got my sneakers in the car. We'll leave that where it is. No, but it's just like our everyday life. You know, it's about fit. Because I tell my kids, and it's hard to do. It's hard to find that balance, you know, because we all at 18, 19, 17, 18, 19, 20, we bought that money. You know what I'm saying? Because like when I came out of college, before I went to college, I said I'm going with whoever offers me the most money. I didn't think about it. What's the best fit for me? What my major was going to be? And you know, when I'm playing sports, is that coach a good fit for me? Is the system a good fit for me? Because you got some kids that they operate within a system. You know, Duke has their own system. Kentucky has a different system. Arkansas plays by a different system, and neither are the same. All good programs, but neither are the same. And a lot of times what these kids do is they go and they say, well, somebody offered me 1.2 million. I'm going to go over here, and they end up not playing. Or they end up being there for 4 years, and that now their NBA dreams are gone because they sacrificed that dollar today instead of delayed gratification, which is a lot of what we teach in financial literacy too, is delayed gratification. You know, is it going to cost me more in the long run to get that money today, or should I wait, get more money later on because I took the necessary steps. I got in the system that allowed me to showcase my talents. And again, same with the workforce. I went to a job that allowed me to showcase my best talent and give my best attributes at that job while also maybe sacrificing a little money today to get that big bag later.
What's your thoughts on the portal, man?
Man, I think I share a lot of the sentiments that you all share. I think the perspective that I would add is, growing up and, all of us, being some form of athlete, you always had that talk about the statistics in terms of, okay, hey, this is what makes it to each one of those professional leagues, man. So I also think it's about, understanding that, where you're at, having people around you that are going to be real with you and you being real with yourself to kind of say like, hey, maybe I may want to do NBA, but right now, like, that might not really be in the cards for me. So how do I accumulate the most money that I can right now in college to maybe give myself a head start once I get out of college? I know for me, not, playing sports in college, my head start was that I had a full academic scholarship. So I didn't have loans coming out of, college. So I kind of got a little bit of a, boost in being able to, buy homes earlier than, some of my peers and do things differently than some of my peers. And even just having a wife who went to school and had loans, I was able to see that juxtaposition between the two of them and how that looks. So I also think it's about, how do you be smart? Because I feel like a lot of these colleges are, squeezing everything that they can out of these athletes, and then they're leaving without, any type of know-how in terms of how to live their life. They don't have money because they've, spent it on all the things, or before this, it was just scholarships and stuff. So I do think for the majority, because the majority of college athletes aren't going to some professional league, it's about how do you have somebody like him next to you to help you understand, how do you manage that money and how do you help it be an accelerator? Because a lot of times you're also seeing money that your parents have never seen before. Right?
Nobody in your community.
Right. So then it's like, okay, what do you do with that? It's not, oh man, let me go to the Mercedes dealership and get that new Maybach, or it's like,
But is that the mindset though?
But I think to his point, at that age, it's definitely like, man, I want to stunt. I want to show off. Like, I done worked hard for this. Of course, at that age, even at this age, there's traces of it in there. But I think for the majority of them, if you have an opportunity to make that money, man, make it work for you, versus just, splurging, and take advantage of this. Because again, many of you, this is the reality of the numbers. You're not going to go to a pro league, right, and see that type of money probably ever again.
Yeah, and it's crazy because a lot of them are making, millions of dollars now. And like you said, they'll never be a professional. Well, they're professionals now, but they'll never get to like the NBA and stuff. So it's kind of a slippery slope because on one side, it's generational money, like you said, for a lot of kids, because a lot of them look like you and I, and a lot of them look like us. And it's generational money. They've never seen that. Their grandparents, great-grandparents, kids, like, hell, all together, they've not seen that. Add it up together. Like, if you combine it, a lot of them have not seen that level of wealth, which is why it becomes critical for them to surround themselves with the right people. Get people that aren't trying to take advantage of them, because they get enough of that crap. Trust me, I've seen it. Somebody, I won't call names, but they were in the NFL, and they're, what do you call it? Is it powder puff? Whatever the football is when you're a youth. Coach hit him up. Was like, hey, man, we want to build this new field, man. You played on the AAU team. And I'm like, that was like 20 years ago. We need $50,000. And the first thing, he called me, and the first thing I said was, is he putting up $50,000? And he just got real quiet and was like, "You right," and hung up the phone. They have enough of that, and people wonder why they go broke, because everybody and their mama is like, "Hey man, you're a millionaire now. Remember when I drove you to AAU games? Remember when I was at all your games? I was your biggest cheerleader." And it's like, bro, that's not how this works. They need to make sure they have a solid foundation first. It's like being on the airplane. When I just got through flying on Monday.
The same thing. I know what you're about to say too.
They tell you, hey, put yours on first before you try to help somebody else. And I was like, that don't make sense, because if my kid's sitting here, I want to help them first, but if you ain't got no oxygen, you pass out, then you're no help to anybody. You know what I'm saying? So help yourself first. Get a solid foundation, and then help the people next to you. Because I'm never gonna fault kids for like, hey, I want to buy my mom a house or give my dad a car because they never had that. But at the same time, if your foundation is shaky, like you're on a shaky foundation, putting them on a shaky foundation, because when you ain't got no money, they can't afford the property taxes on that house or the car. You know, they can't afford the insurance on that car anymore. But you get that solid foundation.
Man, you got some stuff warming up on the grill already. He already. I know we got to go back to the beginning, but he already got some. I got some stuff I want to talk to him
can't
about.
really eat, man.
Boy, he got some stuff warming up on that grill, boy.
Yeah, well, what's on the grill today? Like I said, that's our main course. That's the meat and potatoes of our podcast. Is what's on the grill, and what's on the grill today? We're gonna continue to learn more about the financial guru right here.
Yes, sir.
His upbringing, what made him want to pursue his doctorate in finance, as well as what's the driving force behind his family foundation. What role does economics play in food and nutrition? Talk about tips on saving and investing, and just even like, hey, where do I start? If I don't even feel like I have enough money to need a financial advisor, like how do I just start myself? So that's what's on the grill today. So man, let's get into it. Let's take it back. Where'd you grow up, man?
Man, I grew up in the great city, the big city of Grambling, Louisiana, man. The blue spot on the map, man.
Okay.
If you drive through there, if the university one day, you'll miss it, I promise you. Because there's nothing there but the school. So I grew up in Grambling, Louisiana. I'm the third of 6 kids. All college bound. All of us went to college. Some of us have advanced degrees. So education was very big in my house. And when I say big, that's an understatement. My dad's Nigerian. My mom's from Boston. She grew up as one of the only black kids in that entire area in Dorchester, Massachusetts. So education was real critical for both of them. It played a big role in their lives, and they were like, hey, education is here. That's the only way you're going to get a good job. I'll speak more on that later. But they think, they said this is the only way you're going to get a good job and how people are going to respect you and be able to listen to what you have to say. So big town, Grambling, Louisiana. I've only lived in 2 places in my life. I lived in Grambling, Louisiana, and now Northwest Arkansas, where I've been since 2009. I actually moved here in 2009 to pursue my master's degree at the University of Arkansas.
Okay. All right. Now, we talk about education is big. You the middle. I guess you fall in the middle of 6. Like, so brothers. I know you got brothers. You have sisters, too?
Yes.
Yeah. I know a lot of them. We'll get into that, but like, let's talk about what made finance. Like, what made you want to pursue finance?
So I'll give you a couple of fun facts about me.
Okay.
Number 1, I started out in forensic chemistry. My family will tell you, my girl will tell you, my kids, I watch forensic files almost every night because it's just something that interests me. I'm like, man, they can find a piece of hair sitting over there in that corner and be like, hey, you the one that killed that guy, and this is how you did it. It's like, what? From a piece of hair? How did you figure all that out? So it was very interesting to me, and I started out in forensic chemistry. Also because my father was like, hey, you're good at math and science, you should be a science major. And I was like, okay, sure, that makes sense. Went to an internship at Tulane University, hated it. I said, I'm standing in a cold lab, it was probably 30 degrees in there. And I said, man, it is cold in here, and I'm going to do this for the next 30 years or so. I don't think I want to do this. It just so happened that the stars aligned because I kept saying, how do people figure out this thing, finance? How are some of my friends, my white counterparts, how are they able? I had a classmate who graduated. When he graduated, he was gifted like a house. His parents gifted him a house. And I was like, how do we get there? How do we figure out this money thing and how to accumulate wealth? And I just got really curious. And I started asking the right questions. I'll never forget, I was sitting in I came back from that internship that summer. I enrolled in one accounting class. I said, I'm going to just learn some accounting on the side. I wasn't really ready to dive in yet. I said, I'm going to just take this one class. Came back, took the class. I was sitting there with an older, non-traditional student, and we just started talking shop, and I was just like, hey, what do you know about finances? How do I start investing? Like, I don't know anything. Nobody in my community talks about it. Growing up in a 2-parent home, you would think that it's talked about. We never talked about it. It was like a forbidden topic. And I'll never forget, I asked my mom, because I got all these scholarships, I said, where's my college fund? I want to go buy a car. And she looked at me and said, what college fund? And I was like, okay, cool. I heard my friends talking about college funds, so I thought we should have had one.
Yeah.
And nothing against my parents. They had 6 kids. We were expensive.
Yeah.
And so I came back and I said, I need to figure this thing out. And I want to be the one that's going to talk about finances since nobody wants to talk about it. It cannot be that forbidden of a topic that no one in my community wants to talk about it. So I then switched my major the next year, my sophomore year, which put me a year behind. Still graduated on time. Crazy. But I started in finance and I really dove in. Got a couple of internships, and I literally showed up to Morgan Stanley. I'll never forget, they were on a country club, and I walked in there and I said, I don't know anything. I'm just here to learn. And they both looked at me and said, that's what we like to hear. Gave me a few books to read and said, read these books and then come back and we'll talk. And I was like, I think they're trying to test me. I said, I'm going to go read these books for real. I'm going to read them in a week, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to have a bunch of questions that I highlight. I'm going to forward a few pages so it at least looks like I've been studying, you know what I mean? And I came back and I really just dove in. And I said, if nobody else is going to talk about finance, it's going to start with me. I'm going to be the one, I'm going to be the catalyst that's going to get our community going and get us, and let people know it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to say, I don't know, I don't understand money. Like, it's okay to say that. I put my pride to the side and I walked in and said, I don't know what this crap is, but I want to figure it out because I want to be rich, I want to be wealthy, I want to be comfortable. And from there, it just kind of snowballed because my best friend, I talked to him this morning. I would call him weekly. Yeah. And I'd be like, bro, this is what I learned today, man. We got to do this, man. This is crazy. Like, I never knew this existed. We got to figure this thing out. And I was just on fire like that. And to this day, I'm still like that. It's been 20 years ago that I'm like, hey, we got to figure this finance thing out. And if it's going to start with anybody, it needs to start with me.
Yeah. Now, I'm kind of like you when it came to, so I'm a U of A grad. But when I graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So my parents was like, you go with math and stuff like that, you should be a computer engineer. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And man, I did it for a year and a half. Grades wasn't that good because I really wasn't passionate about it, really wasn't feeling it, man. And so I actually switched to accounting. I had an advisor. He was like, look, he's like, one, you can do either information systems or you can do accounting. He's like, information system, you still get some of that computer base and numbers. And I was like, no, I'm done with the computer base just in general. He was like, and you don't have to be a CPA, like accounting, just a solid degree to have. And Alex, I know you talked about like food science was what you wanted to do, right? Like, also, like, how do we instill that in our kids of like, hey, follow your dreams. Don't let me tell you what you should be. Like, you figure out. How do we help them figure out?
Yeah, I think for me, and my father was an educator, we started having those conversations probably about early June. No, that was sophomore year, because I remember I went to FAMU for a summer and just was kind of learning more about agricultural stuff. To me, I think my motto when I'm able to talk to young people is, especially as, I look around my house and look at how my kids live versus how I was living growing up and just what these kids have afforded to them. I try to just tell them, what you want to do needs to match the lifestyle you're trying to live, right? So if you're, saying, hey, I want to drive that car that you drive there, and I want to have a shoe collection, I want to have that. It's like, trying to be an artist, because it's going to create that friction in life, because there may be passion there, but there's also passion to have certain things, right, that you've grown accustomed to having. So to me, that's my formula when I'm able to talk to people is you need to be able to do something that kind of matches that, because if not, I think it's always going to be that tension around, like, I am passionate about this, but I don't have nowhere to stay, or I'm sleeping out of my car, or I'm not, I'm in this tiny apartment, right? And I think that's just, again, because of where the generation is at today and where probably American culture has moved quite a bit, is nobody wants to hear about delayed gratification. I want it now. I want that car now. I want that house now. I want that now. And so, trying to get people to understand that, en masse is kind of like swimming upstream. So as they're coming up early, it's like, hey, let me know what things you're interested in, what type of life, because you can kind of tell some people are just minimalists, so they may not be into materialistic things and all of that. And so being an artist may, put their soul on fire because they may not need all of those things. But to me, I think it's a combination of those two.
Yeah. Now, me and your oldest are the same age. What conversation are you having with your oldest?
So I've told him, and I've told my youngest too, because the other day my youngest sitting at the dinner table, he's 8, and he asked me just randomly out of nowhere, do I have to go to college? And I was like, it caught me off guard, and I kind of chuckled, because I was like, why are you even asking me this? Where is this coming from? But I gave him a real honest and blunt answer. I said, do what makes you happy. At the end of the day, it's your life. I always think about Bronny James, and I'm like, I can't imagine going into a field that my father has excelled in for 22, longer than I've been alive. You know what I mean? It's the pressure that kid must face. Now, with me, I don't care what my kids do, as long as they're happy, they're successful, they're whole, they're good men. And so I tell him, be happy, find something that truly makes you happy. He likes to make money, find a way to turn that happiness into money as well. Because if he doesn't want to go into accounting or finance, I don't want to pressure him to do so. Because again, I've been successful in that field, and the pressure has to be, almost insurmountable at times to say, hey, I got to follow this guy. I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I can live up to that. So yes, I want to create opportunities for them, but I don't want him to feel, or either of my kids feel obligated to do exactly what I'm doing.
Now, we talked about, like you said, your wife had loans. I had some education scholarships coming out that I lost. So then I had to take out loans. Let's talk about, man, that missing piece that, like, us not even understanding how student loans work. Now understanding, hey, I took this loan out in 2005 and I don't have to pay it until I graduate. But say I graduate in 4 years, 5 years, that's accumulating interest on it. So that $10,000 loan might turn into $21,000 loan that you know what I'm saying? Like that, understanding that piece, like how do we get that information into our communities, and like how important is it to have like finance? Do we think we need to have those like finance classes in high school and in college?
I always tell people start as early as possible. And by that, as soon as a child can understand it, start introducing bits and pieces of that information to them. I'll give you an example. My kids, especially my oldest, anytime I've ever done a business deal, anytime I go speak, he's right there. And people think, oh, he doesn't understand it. He's not paying attention. But if you ask him anything about finance right now, he's about to be 14. If you ask him anything about finance right now, he can give you an answer. Why? Because he's been around it. He's heard all of that. He's heard the information over and over and over and over. And he's seen, hey, my dad is not only teaching this stuff, he's really living it. And now he understands those things. So I think it's critical to have those conversations and to let kids understand, hey, this is what a scholarship looks like. So I'll tell you a brief story about myself. My best friend, I bring him up a lot because we've been in the trenches together. Like, let me tell you, we've been in the trenches together since we were little. And I had no idea up until we were adults that he didn't know what a scholarship was. He told me one day, he was like, bro, I had no idea how to even start to apply for a scholarship. I had no idea what that was. I just thought there was one option. If we couldn't afford school, take out student loans. And being at Grambling State, you see that a lot. It was crazy that the tire and rim guy and the guy that installed speakers knew when our refund day was before we knew. And I was like, how do you know that? I just happened to
know when to come on.
Like I walked in there because I could afford to buy speakers, so I walked in there. I was like, hey, I want to buy some speakers, whoop de woo, and I was like, when can you install it? And he started looking at his calendar. He's like, oh, this is refund day. I said, whoa, brother, how do you know that? You're not you 20 years older than us. You're not in school. I had never seen you on campus. How do you know that? He's like, oh, watch how the line be out the door when refund day comes. And you look around, you be in class, classes are empty, but you drive by the tire and rim shop, everybody's in there. And so, of course, me being inquisitive, I started asking questions like, how can y'all afford that? I know you ain't making the grades because you don't ever come to class. So I know you fail in this class, so you can't be on scholarship. I took out this loan for $10,000, and I said, so rather than using that money for your education and to build some assets, you're buying rims and tires and speakers. And they were like, yeah, we'll pay it off after we graduate. And it's like, that way of thinking is so backwards, and it puts us 30 years behind when we're already 600 years behind, if you catch what I'm saying. And so it puts us another 30 years behind because we have this way of thinking that, hey, it's like we said, delayed gratification is delayed for the loan company. They're like, yeah, we gonna wait on you 30 years, but after 30 years, you're $10,000, you paid us $50,000 because we're like, yeah, you can do an income-based repayment, you can delay it, you can defer it 10 more years, and it's like, yeah, you're deferring the payment, but the interest is still accruing. So helping kids understand that and understand where to look for scholarships, because I always challenge kids, and I'll challenge your viewers today. Anybody that's looking for scholarships, just type in something you're passionate about. A lot of us like shoes. Nike offers a scholarship. Gucci, all of them offer scholarships. Walmart offers scholarships. And I always challenge the kids, when you're walking down the aisle at Walmart, look at the shelf, write down 10 companies you see on the shelf. When you get home, even you can do it while you're in the store. Get your phone out and Google, Kellogg scholarships or Quaker scholarships. They all have them. And people don't realize that because nobody's teaching them that. The money is out there because they have to get rid of it. They have an allocated budget for scholarships and money to give away to the communities, and people just don't know it's out there. So the education portion is very critical for them to understand what's out there, number one. Number two, how to find it, where to apply, and number three, not being afraid to be told no. Because I was applying for everything. If it said women's scholarship, in my mind, I was like, I know I'm not a woman and I'm a straight male, but if they don't have enough women to get his money to, guess who's next in line? Me, because they got to get rid of it. I was applying for Hispanic scholarships. I didn't care. I was like, 'cause if they got to get rid of the money and they got 10 scholarships, they only get 5 that are Hispanic, well, guess who else is in line? They be like, well, maybe we need to reevaluate our criteria. And this guy, he seems qualified. He's not Hispanic. Are you Hispanic, sir? I'm like, no, I am 100% black, but y'all got money to give away, and I'm willing to receive it, you know what I mean? So, and they can't be afraid to be told no. Like, the no's don't bother me, because I'm like, that's fine. I know I'm not a woman. I know I'm not Hispanic, but you got money. I need money, so I'm not afraid to ask for it.
Now, do you feel like, because I know, like you talk about your parents and talk about money. My parents didn't talk about money. Like I said, bro, you don't know whether my dad got $5, $500, $50,000, or $500,000 in the bank. Like, did your parents talk about money? Like, do you think like that shift needs, just like we talk about like the whole like mental health piece and talking about emotions and feelings, like our parents didn't talk about that. Like, all that starts with us or how we change that dynamic in our community, because even if I'm getting a refund check or like I know I need to apply, I don't get scholarships, but I need to apply for student loans, understanding how that works. Like, do you feel like that starts with us?
I mean, absolutely. Yeah. I think I've always been, pretty adamant when I talk to people that I think in our community, there's been, specific waves that we went after. And so I think for us, the first one was, hey, you need to go to college. That was our way of trying to get us to, equalize ourselves and get on that level playing field. And I'm sure we've all heard, stuff around, hey, they can't, you can get injured, but they can't take your degree and they can take your mind away. And so I think what happened after that is you had a lot of people in places that their family before them were not familiar with.
Yeah.
They weren't familiar with corporate.
Yeah.
If you think at our ages and you go back to our parents, they weren't familiar with the corporate life.
Yeah.
We were really that first starting to be in that age range and that first generation of people that were, graduating from college and, getting corporate jobs and having 401ks and stock options.
Yeah.
So they weren't equipped. They didn't have financial advisors. They didn't have all of those different things. And I think our society, and I always say this, I'm a black man, like he said, so I can't only speak from that POV. I can't speak for anybody else's.
Yeah, for sure.
But I feel like in our society, we hang on to things too long. We hang on to traditions that are, outdated too long. We hang on to, you know, we can get into food, you know, thing around, you know, soul food and you know, that was never intended for us to eat every day. Like we hang on to things so long, right? So I think, you know, what you saw come out of that was people didn't know what to do. And then you were in this newfound fame and glory. And it's like, well, I want to ball out.
Yeah.
I want to go in and ball out. So, so
I want to go get real.
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like I want to go
right. But it's in all of that is linked to the culture and the things that, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of people in our society are looking up to.
Yeah.
So the people that have made it are what? Entertainers.
Yeah.
Athletes.
Yeah.
So we looking at them, not even knowing, like, I'm not even close to that guy's level, but it's like, oh yeah, let me go get the Escalade with the 20 folds on it, with the speakers and the TVs and the back.
It's showing our age now, man. I think what you talking about? It's on our age, man. Chill out.
I feel like it's put more trauma on us, and there was nobody there to kind of whisper in our ears like, that's not the way to do that.
Yeah.
Like that, like, you know, I've heard people say that. I mean, it sounds cool. I don't know how much I agree with it or whatever, but I've heard people say, you know, rich people are loud, wealthy people are quiet, right? You know, wealth is quiet or something to that, you know, thing. So there's, as you know, they say it's levels to to wealth and all of that. So I just think to me, a lot of it is our parents of our generation, then they have the equipment. The only thing I was told about money was like, this is what you got, try to budget it, which the term of budget was like, okay, you need to save some first, and then, you know, the rest is what you have, and, you know, don't spend it all, because if you spend it all, you ain't gonna have no more.
Yeah.
That was the extent of what I was told around money and finance.
Yeah. So you talked about, what's the driving force behind your family foundation? Like, what is your, like,
So, and just to be completely transparent, it goes back to my friend. He was is a big influence in that, because again, he told me, hey, I never knew what a scholarship was.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's odd, because we grew up to literally, this is my best friend since we were like 5.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did I know this information and he didn't?
Yeah.
And so as I was sitting one day and I started to look at number one, the cost of college now is just absurd.
Right.
Number two, the cost of a book is astronomical. It was back then. I had to figure out some alternative methods to getting books back then. But, you know, buying one book is like, you know, $500, $600, $700 for a book that you're going to use one time. And so just thinking about that and going back to my community back at home and seeing how many kids couldn't afford to go to college.
Yeah.
How many kids didn't understand what it took to go to college. And all in their minds, all they had was, hey, once I graduate high school, I got to go work. And once I graduate high school, if I want to go to school, I got to take out all these loans because I don't want to inconvenience my family, or mom has saved up a little bit of money for me, and so that's not going to be enough, so I can't go to school.
Yeah.
And so we started the foundation for that reason, just number one, to educate people.
Okay.
And number two, to alleviate some of that financial burden for kids that really want to go to school. Even if they take an alternative method, for kids that really want to go to school, we don't want finances to be a barrier to them being able to go to the school of their choice to better themselves, because at the end of the day, that's all they want to do is get an education, get a good job, and have a better life than what they've lived and what their parents were able to provide for them.
Yeah. Now let's talk about like the role economics play, not just from an education standpoint, but from like a food and nutrition standpoint. And Alex, my food science guy, like I want to get your opinion first, man, on this topic, and some of the myths too. You know what I mean? Like as far as like, because there is, you know, food scarcity in our community. So, but I want you to talk about that a little bit, man.
I think for me, wealth and food and nutrition, I think they're intrinsically tied to each other. And when I say that, I think, you know, I think there's ways of how people look at it, right? So I think there's a lot of wealth is, to many people, it's about a status symbol.
Okay.
Right? You know, I've made it, you know what I'm saying? And to be able to show that in some way, shape, or form, right? I think about, you know, a lot of times, you know, and I know my intent is to do it, but I'll, you know, ask my wife, like, hey, you wanna go to Red Lobster? You wanna go to Olive Garden? Because these were things when we were younger and high school and college age. That was a status time, right? But it was tied to the amount of money we had at this time. Now that we're past that bar, she'll turn her nose up and be like, I'm not stepping foot in there again.
Yes.
But and so that talks about how, okay, I have more, so I feel like I can do more, which I think I know it can be deadly because I've seen it in my own financial journey and in other people's, and I've had people like him tell me, like, hey, just because you making more don't mean you need to spend more. But I think that's just like what my parents used to say, it's in one ear and out the other. It's like, man, I done got 50,000 promotion this year. Let me go run this up, and let me go to Aruba on a vacation. You know what I'm saying?
It's funny that you say you're talking about food, because a lot of you guys don't know on the podcast, like, I'm about to switch journeys, leaving corporate, and like me and my wife been talking about like what that budget look like and like what spending's gonna look like. And I looked at her dead in the face the other day. I said, if we're gonna do anything, we're gonna eat. Like I'm gonna eat. Yeah, I'm gonna eat good.
That ain't getting touched.
Something else gonna say.
Leave that on the budget.
Yeah, that's gonna be on the budget. But like, I know we talk about like Red Lobster used to be just a bar for us, but like I feel like it's even deeper than that, because like there's, you know, we've talked about on previous podcasts like about food deserts, and so like I think I saw a stat where it says 27% of African American kids are living with food insecurity, which meaning like they don't know where their next meal is gonna come from, or if they're even going to eat. So it's like, if you tie that into, man, if I'm going to school hungry or going to bed at night hungry, like how do I have the energy or capacity to even get an education? You know what I mean? Like I'm not thinking about school, I'm thinking about
my
eating.
stomach's
You know what I'm saying?
growing.
So when we talk about in our community, kids dropping out and getting caught up in things, other community where they see these, they're not entertainers, you know what I mean? But they're getting money. And so it's like, and so like, I'm trying to eat, forget school, I'm trying to eat. I think people don't even realize how that plays a part too. They just see like, oh, they can go to school and this and that, but that kid ain't ate. You know what I mean? And like understanding, I think like that's part of like the systemic racism of like, we don't have shops where we can get like fresh fruits and vegetables in our community, or even afford to. You know what I mean? Like if I can't afford noodles, how I'm gonna go get fresh fruit, fresh broccoli? Like, what are some alternatives though that kind of myths you can say like, all right, if you can't get this?
I think for me, I'm like him. Because you went to Grambling, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we both.
Heard you went to FAMU.
I went to A&M. I went to Alabama A&M for school. Oh my gosh! See, look at that, man. Hey,
crazy.
Anytime I get a chance to talk about the Hill, y'all know I'm ecstatic. I always am happy to have other HBCU graduates. I love my brother Dom, but I'm always happy to have HBCU graduates on the show with me. But one of the things that was really impressive upon me, and I've talked about this quite a bit, is how it was early on where you left your town, you went, acquired a skill, and then you brought that skill back to your town. And so to me, what we are doing right here, this is part of giving back my talents, because people don't know people like me. They haven't seen a food scientist that's like me. So it really starts with education, and it starts with that myth busting piece in terms of helping people understand. Don't let nobody shame you because you can't get organic, or because you can't get cage free, or because you can't get locally pasteurized, or you can't get grass fed, because we talked about this before. Some of those things are marketing things to allow them to feel like, okay, people really want this, so we're going to put a premium on this in terms of price. But when you look at the nutritional aspects of it, it may not offer anything more than just being a eating preference than to others. Like for me, I don't like the way the grass-fed beef tastes.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to eat that, but I can always say, hey, I can choose a lean or whatever, to be kind of, in line with, what it is we're looking for. So I think it starts with the education in terms of, hey, I don't care about, and then really going a little bit deeper. People don't understand that frozen fruits and vegetable they're frozen at the peak of their ripeness.
I didn't know.
They're actually more there. So they have a lot of times, if you think about it, freezing is like stopping the clock within food.
Yeah.
It stops the clock from microbial growth. It stops the clock, that deterioration from, a spinach that's going to go from fresh to spoiled in a period of time. It stops the clock on all of that. So anything that is fresh that's sitting out there has a clock.
Yeah.
When you go and get those bananas, they turn green and they go all the way to brown and black.
Yeah.
So when you go and get something that's frozen, you have something that is at its peak of quality.
Yeah.
But no one's telling you that. He just said, I didn't know that.
I didn't.
I bet you if you took 10 people, majority of them would say, I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
But people are putting these, things out here to make you believe if you can't buy it this way, then it's not going to be good for you. And then that, what they say, what a lie goes faster, spreads faster than the truth.
Yep.
Right? So it's one of those things where, okay, enough people are saying it. People are putting it on their social media. Oh, you gotta have this organic this, you gotta have that. And people are feeling like, man, I'm not adequate enough on that level because I can't get that. So I think it's about, education. And then I also think it's about, and hearing about what he has with his foundation is, how can we just give back to help others, right? I think once you're in this space, what bothers me about the whole, generational wealth movement is that you just got some people in there just want to just get obscenely rich, but they don't want to help anybody else. Now, to each his own, right? It's not, but
sure.
my moral compass and fiber is, I don't want to be, out there living good and I got to drive past people that is begging for food. Like that just don't sit right with me personally, right? So I feel like when you get into these spaces, how am I using what I know, my wherewithal and to help others, get to these spaces and be able to eat and not be in, food insecure and have food and be in food deserts. How do we solve that?
But let's talk about also too, though, on the flip side of that is something's real about, let's talk about inflation that's going on right now. You know what I mean? And so like in our community, we grew up a lot of blue collar workers and stuff like that. And we face systemic racism when it comes to, because I wasn't able to get that education. So I can't get that job, corporate job. And so I have to work this 9 to 5 and I'm not getting a raise or layoffs happening. So like the price of things are going up. My paycheck isn't going up. Like, what advice do you give to families in that case? Because, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a real thing. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, like a guy who just lost his job, like, it's a real thing in my house, too. Like, all right, we starting over.
Yeah.
But the price is still going up. Like, how do we shift?
Look, to speak candidly, because I try to make sure people stop using excuses. Because a lot of people like to use, oh, my daddy wasn't there, so I can't be a good man. My mama wasn't there, so I don't know how to treat a woman. I've lost my job, so I don't know how to, survive. And it's one of those things we just adapt. I tell people, adapt. You might have been eating ribeye every week. You can't eat ribeye every week anymore. Sometimes you just got to adjust the way that you're living. Yeah.
I didn't mean to get that.
Look, you might not be able to eat Wagyu, but I love Wagyu. That's all I eat now, and you might not be able to afford that anymore. So, just adjust your standard of a living because life happens. I've been fortunate enough to work in a field where I'm an independent contractor. I set my own hours. I set my own price. So when inflation hits, I'm like, hey, guys, everything's going up, including my price. A lot of times because I've created that value already, I can come to them and say, hey, the price is going up, man. Everything can't stay consistent. We've been at this price for 3, 4, 5 years. change happens. And most times they understand because I've learned how to speak to them. But you just adjust your standard of living. And that goes into looking at your budget. I know people are so tired of hearing budget. Everybody's so tired of hearing about that.
What advice do you give a client or something like that on like how to start a budget? Like, how do you tell them like where to start?
To put it simply, start. That's a lot of people's issue is they're so afraid and they're frozen by fear of what they will find.
Oh yeah.
They will literally break out in highs if you make them sit down right here in front of you and say, hey, let's sit down and look at your budget. Just me and you, let's have drinks. Let's talk about your budget. They will literally probably pass out. And it's because they're so afraid of what they might find. I'm like, but it's you spending it. Like, it's no one else spending that money but you. Yeah. Sit down and actually have a real conversation with yourself. Because you're not lying to anybody but yourself. Because, you know, if I'm sitting down talking to you about your budget, that don't affect me. That doesn't affect anything I got going on. It's you. You have to eventually face your demons, as we say. You got to look in the mirror and say, hey, I've got to fix this problem. And a lot of times we don't want to look at the budget because we think it's telling us, oh, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. Anytime I'm speaking to people, I put in big red letters, fun. Because if it's in your budget, you can do it. Like, if you want to go to Aruba, put it in your budget. Figure out how you can afford that. And if life happens, adjust accordingly. Maybe, you know, if you're on a payment plan to pay yourself to go to Aruba, maybe you won't be able to go in September. Maybe you have to push it back to next January. You know, it's just a matter of adjustments, but you won't know what adjustments to make if you don't have a concrete plan in place. And so we have to start those budgets and be able to have those very candid conversations. Because again, a lot of people, even in my circle, are just afraid of having those conversations. Just an uncomfortable conversation for them.
Is there like buckets you tell them to put? Like as a budget, like this is bills, this is vacation fund, and this is saving, this is investing. If I can invest, like what are a couple buckets that you kind of tell them as they break out their budget to put it in?
So the first thing we always look at, I grew up in the Kojic church, so we always talked about tithing. I don't always look at tithing in the traditional sense. I look at giving of your time, giving of your money, your efforts. So giving that off top. So that's another reason we started the foundation, is because we were always taught to give back and make sure that we're putting others before ourselves. Number two, we look at necessities, because we have to all have somewhere to live. We all have to have clothing. We all have to have transportation. Those are the necessities. Those take priority as well. Then we look at your savings and investments, and also then your last bucket is your debt, if you have any. I always tell you to pay yourself first. I always say, you know, put others before yourself. You know, you do your 10%, and then you break back and say, hey, here's my savings or investment, and then my necessities, and then the debt that I have to pay off. So again, your housing, clothing, transportation. Oh, I forgot food. How did I forget food? We're on a cookout show, and I forgot about food.
I was going to let you finish, and then I was going to circle back with a question.
Yeah. You have to have your food, your shelter, your transportation, and your clothing or necessities.
Yeah. Now, would you consider like cell phone as a necessity? Like, where would you put a cell phone? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like,
man, you're gonna have people mad at me. I personally, mine is a necessity because it's how people reach me for business, and I got kids that have phones, so they need to be able to reach me. Do you need all the bells and whistles? No. Do you need every new cell phone that comes?
Go get straight talk.
Huh?
Straight talk. Go get straight talk.
I ain't say all that now.
But what I'm saying is, if I can't afford an AT&T unlimited plan, but I do know I need to be in communication, because if I'm trying to get a new job, somebody need to be able to reach me. So I mean, I feel like that's what you just talked about, adjustments. Though, like, hey, I need to straight talk it up of minutes until I can be able to afford AT&T, Verizon, whatever that might be.
And none of those are sponsors, I don't think, right?
Yeah,
so AT&T, Verizon, Straight Talk, they did not sponsor any of this, so I ain't mentioning no names.
So investing piece, like I know you talked about, like your friend didn't even know about like scholarships.
Yeah.
So like, where does somebody who don't even know about investing start as well? I know you say just start, but where do I look?
So I would start, most of us have a bank account. Most people I know have at least a general checking account, because that's a lot of people do direct deposit. Go sit down with the banker. That's how I started. the gentleman that I spoke about earlier, in my class, he gave me a card. He said, go see Trisha. I'll never forget her name. Trisha, I forget her last name, but her name is Trisha. Yeah. I went and sat with her. She did not charge me for that visit because number one, she wanted my business, and number two, she knew that I was really genuine about learning and just really growing my money. And so I sat down and just had a very, very open and honest conversation with her. I was like, I don't understand this stuff, but I want to start. I just need to start because I was taught you start early. The more time you have, the better. And so I just went in there and I sat down and was very honest with her about where I was at then and where I wanted to be. And again, can't let fear cripple us and say, well, I don't want the bank to know. Like, the bank already knows what your money looks like, so go talk to them. Like, if anybody knows what your money looks like, it's your banker and your accountant. Yeah. Go talk to them and have those conversations, because a lot of them do free consultations. Yeah. I do a free initial consultation because a lot of people like to get these free subsequent consultations. No, I do the first one free. Yeah. And go for drinks or dinner or something and just talk. Just have those very open and candid conversations about, hey, this is what I want to do. How do I start? Who do I need to talk to? And if that banker or that accountant can't point you in, if they can't help you, they can point you in the right direction because they made the connections. They can tell you, okay, based on our conversation, this is who I'm going to put you in contact with. Now, I will say, don't make them look bad if they put you in contact with this person and you don't show, because I've had that happen too, where they don't show up and don't follow up, and they're like, hey, your friend didn't show up. So if they put you in contact, just show up. Make the initial effort, and just be okay being transparent and vulnerable. Yeah.
Now, people in our community, I know back where I'm from, don't know financial advisor, don't know anything about that. But like, so what would you tell them? Like somebody who just living paycheck to paycheck and might not even be able just paycheck to paycheck. Like, what would you tell them to look for free? You know what I mean? Because like that one free consultation not going to help them. So is there other free avenues that maybe like free courses, free trials, free anything that like can kind of help them along the way?
There are, so a lot of these gurus that you see on the internet, like Dave Ramsey, they have a lot of free information. Google is your friend. Because I still to this day, if you looked at my Google search history, you would probably be cracking up because some of the stuff I Google, because I'm like, where did that come from? Or how do I, do X, Y, Z? Or how do I start a podcast? Just simple stuff like that. Where do I start investing? And it's to this day, I use it regularly where I'm like, okay, I don't know how to do something. I'm okay saying I don't know how. Where do I start? And I just start Googling. And then I see numbers start to pop up. If I'm like, hey, how to start investing, or investors near me, or banks near me, or free banking apps, all this stuff starts to populate. And then I start seeing phone numbers and I reach out to them, or emails. If I'm too afraid to cold call somebody, I send them an email like, hey, my name is Clement. I work at XYZ and I want to start investing. I see that you're a banker. Let's get started. Let's see where we need to start or how we need to start. I'm 25 years old or whatever the case may be. I'm not 25, but I'm 25 years old. I plan to work for the next 20 years. So where do I need to start? And who do I need to talk to?
Now, in terms of like checking savings, is there a particular number of accounts like somebody need to have? Like I need to have a bill account. Like I don't need a debit card for this or nothing. Like I just know like, hey, all my bills coming out this. Do I need to have a spending account? Then a savings account. Like it's like what type of advice? Like do they need to have multiple accounts?
It's going to be on a case-by-case basis. Okay. Because some people, if you have 10 bank accounts, it's going to freak you out. Some people, if you have less than 10, it'll freak you out because you're like, I don't know, all my money's in one place. Because there are some that are still super old school, and they're like, I don't want all my money right here, but to spread it out just because I don't want nobody to know what I got. It's kind of comical, but so some people think that way. So to each his own. But at a minimum, having a checking account that you can physically see, you know where your money's going, you know what's coming in, what's going out. And then having an emergency fund, which is saying, okay, Dave Ramsey and all the gurus, including myself, talk about. I'm not saying I'm a guru like Dave now.
Go ahead and put yourself in that. Go ahead and put yourself in that book.
Look, they did call me a competitor one day, so I guess I am up there with Dave now. But having that, starting out with $1,000. A lot of people say $1,000 is too much. Okay, start $10 a month. eventually you get to 1,000. And then you start to look at, as you're budgeting, you start to look at, well, how much is 6 months of expenses? That's what I feel comfortable putting to the side in that emergency fund. Normally in a savings or a high yield savings account that's accumulating some interest, but you can get to it if need be. No, McDonald's is not an emergency because you just wanted a double cheeseburger instead of the dollar menu. That's not an emergency. But a true emergency, you're putting that money aside. They say 6 to 9 months or 6 months to 12 months if you want to. And I can say that I was unemployed for 6 months at one point, and it sucked. Thankfully, I had that cushion because I wasn't unemployed for 6 months. And I was like, crap, man, I'm in real survival mode right here. Thankfully, I've put this to the side, but making sure you have at least those 2 accounts. Then, as you're learning investing, I always tell people learn. There's apps out there where you can paper trade, where it's not real money, but it looks real, and you're trading with the real market. So you can kind of learn how to trade and how to get into the market, how to invest.
Well, you know, that'll make me mad. I'm going to tell you why that'll make me mad. But it's great. Look, use the tool, but this is why I say it'll make me mad. Because say I'm order playing around with it and I done hit. I was like, this could have been real money.
Yeah, that's true. But the thing about the market is it's always cyclical. So it's always going up and down. So if you see one stock take off to the moon, there's going to be 10,000 others that do the same at some point during their lifespan. So it sucks because it's happened to me before where I'm like playing because like you can start out on the game, you have $1 million. I'm like, shoot, I ain't got $1 million. I'm in college, but this is fun. I like to look at it and show my friends like, look, I got this fake $1 million and look how I'm trading Walmart and JCPenney at the time. But when I see those and I'm like, man, that sucks. I also understand, again, it's cyclical. There'll be others that come around where I can do that same thing, but I'm learning. I'm learning how to trade, how to be in the stock market, when to get in, when to get out, what it looks like when it's going up and down, whether I can stomach my investments dropping 15, 20%, or whether I'm just not built for it.
Now, would you tell somebody to save a certain amount first before you start investing? Because like I said, like I'm trying to make it real practical for people who, like I said, might just be paycheck to paycheck. And so like I'm barely saving, so I know I can't invest. So it's like, man, do I get to a certain dollar amount? Like you said, you mentioned like an emergency fund being 6 months. Look, maybe I got to 2 months and now let me start putting a couple dollars into that account. Or how do you tell a person about like, how do I pay down my debt? Do I start with my highest first, or do I start with the one who has the highest interest rate? You know what I mean? Or do I start with my lowest? Like, let me pay that off and get a snowball effect going. Like, what advice like on that?
So the last part you said a word. So paying off that lower balance first and snowballing it gives you that confidence. Yeah. Because y'all play sports. So like once you start, I always tell my son,
free throw line.
Yeah, they like to get out there and they like the first shot they take is a 3. I'm like, bro, you warmed up for 5 minutes. No way should your first shot be a 3. Get your layup. Get your confidence going. Watching Steph Curry, he could miss 12 shots, mess around, get to the free throw line. He sees one go in. And from there, it is downhill. So, again, paying those small balances off first to make sure that you're building that confidence. Because a lot of times we're like, we're going to shoot for the biggest balance. And we look up and we're like, crap, man, I'm only, it's $5,000. I'm still at $4,500. I've been paying on this for months now. And you get discouraged. Rather than, hey, I can pay off the little $500 one. Now I've got some confidence about myself. Now I got a little swagger about myself, and this isn't as hard as I thought it would be. And as far as investing piece, it's, again, personal preference. But I would say first, getting that, Dave Ramsey and them, they all call it baby steps. So you got to you got to crawl before you walk. Getting some money set aside before you start tackling your debt or start tackling investing, because again, if you lose your job, all that goes out the window anyway. Whereas if you have a nice little cushion over here, you lose your job, you're able to still survive. You're able to still make those bill payments, and you're not super stressed because, man, I got a family, baby needs food, mortgage is due, I got to put gas in the car, I got to get groceries, et cetera, but you have a cushion over here. Not saying, hey, I'm relaxed now, I ain't got to apply for jobs, but at least you have some type of cushion. Once you've built some type of cushion that makes you comfortable, again, we say at least 6 months, shoot for that. And then start to invest. Anybody that's working at a job that offers a match, max it out. I say every time there's free money that a lot of people just leave on the table because they're like, oh, I don't think I can afford it. It's free money. Just put the 5 or 3 to 5% to the side. They're matching that. You're making free money right there. Take advantage of it and then budget the rest. You know, especially when we get raises, we're like, oh, I still can't afford it. It's like, but you just got a $50,000 raise. You were okay before. You're going to be okay now. Just make sure you're taking full advantage of what your job is offering.
Alex, you got anything to add? Well, before I'm gonna ask, well, you got anything to add to the conversation? I'm gonna circle back real quick.
No, I mean, I think he's hitting some great points. Gives me some flashbacks to just my journey, and we've used this word. We've talked about it quite a bit. We just gotta get past that fear, right? Like I'd rather do that and, you know, maybe be a little bit embarrassed versus like, man, another year and I'm still in debt, or the debt is growing, or I haven't, like, man, once you can get past that, I think you can make some strides and just understand that, like, we all have different starting points. I think, you know, what they say, comparison is a thief of joy. So I think a lot of times we're looking at others like, oh man, like, it's like, no, run your own race. It's my own progression. Like, and so I think that probably happens quite a bit now. Is, you know, people get sidetracked because they're doing good, and then they like, oh man, he got the new whatever, or I just seen on social media he was in Turks and Caicos and then you get tempted and you start dipping in that money when you know you're supposed to. So I think those two things, like, don't let fear paralyze you, and like, don't compare your journey financially to no one else's. I think that could be big for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's like the horse races. They put the blinders on the horses, so you focus on running your race, like you said, and you're not looking over here what this horse is over here doing, or like what he's doing over here. All I see is my lane, my race, and I know I got to win it on my own.
Yeah. I think I would tell somebody, man, understand your relationship with money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think that plays a big part too, as far as like how we grew up. You know what I'm saying? And like, what was that relationship with money? Because it's like we talked about, hey, I came from the hood and now I have all this money that my family combined has never seen. And so now I want everything that I never had. And then I end up buying things that are fleeting. And I look down the road 5-7 years down there, I'm broke. So understanding like your relationship with money, and like, is this a emotional buy, like a feeling buy? Like, I think you need to understand, like, man, is this something that I need? Like food, like electricity, you know what I mean? Is this something that I just love? Like, all right, if it is a trip to Turks and Caicos, can I afford this?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Can I afford this trip that's going to bring, that I'm going to remember forever? Like, I was able to take my kids to Disney World and they remembered that. So like, that's something that I'm going to love, because that's a core memory that I'm creating with my kid. Is it something that I just like or want? You know what I'm saying? Like, we was talking about shoes. Like, I probably don't need another pair of shoes, but I like those shoes. You know what I'm saying? But like 6 months from now, would I be like, man, I probably should have spent on something else or saved instead of spending that? But for somebody who can't afford to talk to you every day, give them another, what that book at? Give them another, a little cheaper way to kind of get some tips. Tips on.
I told you it was a published author.
I told you that. Put it out.
All right, so I'm gonna do something different here today, man.
Okay.
All right. Gift for y'all, man. Because look, you brought up my book, so this is a new one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna debut this. Y'all the first ones to get it.
Yes, sir.
So we do have.
Yes, sir.
And I didn't want to spoil it. We do have the Broke College Kid's Guide to Financial Success. It does go into detail. That's for you too. I'll sign it when we're done. But it does go into detail about how to, apply for scholarships. Fun fact about me, I hated school. It's weird that when you think about it, because I was just always really smart and I got all these degrees, but I hated school. But I also understood, number one, I'm a young black man. I have dreads. And a lot of people think I'm younger than I am, not knowing I've been in finance almost 20 years now. But I also understood,
Black don't
when
crack.
when you start putting them letters in front and behind your name, people will say, "Oh, he's an expert." I was like, I've been saying the same thing for 20 years, but I put a couple of letters in front of my name, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, he's the expert now." But it also talks about taking an alternative route. You know, if college isn't for you, like we talked about earlier, finding that true happiness. If college isn't what's gonna make you ultimately happy, because y'all are adults. Y'all have gotten a plumbing bill before. You know what plumbers making. I was like, we always talk, don't be a plumber. I'm
I
like,
literally told my son, I said, son, you don't have to go. Son, if you told me today you want to be a plumber, cool. I said, because guess what? People always gonna need plumbers. I said, now I don't want you to just stop at, hey, I want to be a plumber. Understanding, like, yeah, when I first come out, I'm probably gonna have to start working for a company. But how do I build my own company where now you don't even have to go to a job? You sending people to jobs and you making money. Like, get you a trade. Yeah. Like,
man, cause listen, like I said, I had to call a plumber the other day, and I was like, "Oh shit!" I said, "How much y'all charge?" I said, "What's the labor portion?" I said, "You know, we were taught don't be garbage men, don't be plumbers, don't learn a trade." And I'm like, until you get that trade bill, you're like, "Man, I should have."
Somebody came and fixed my shower about a month ago, and he was there, bro, maybe 10 minutes, and then he handed me the bill. I said, "How much was the piece?" $5. You know what I'm saying? Like, how much was the piece? And then, like, you were only here, I promise you, man, 10 minutes. And then they gave me the bill. So, like, yeah, trades are good, man. So this is one book. Don't you have another book too? Tell me
I ain't bring another book. So they can find it at We'll have to drop the link out there, ClementOgunyemi.com. We'll have the book at pre-sale. Actually starts this month because it's financial literacy month, so it's not even on sale yet. So y'all get the exclusive.
You get exclusive.
Y'all get the exclusive, man. So it'll be we'll start pre-sale this month. It'll go officially on sale in June.
Okay.
And the goal is to get this into every kid's hands from high school all the way up through college, because we do talk about how you can keep applying for scholarships, because I did all through college. I was applying for scholarships. I was on a full ride. I got money back. I bought a house. I did all the things while I was still in college, because I wasn't afraid of people telling me no, because I took the necessary steps. And now I'm going back and teaching it as well. And I do have the other book you're referring to, 9/10, which is Church Folks' Guide to Living Above Tithes and Offering, because we're always taught to give 1/10 of our money up front, but a lot of us still struggle with the 90%, which is baffling to me that we're able to give 10% and then we struggle with the 90. So that book talks about how to budget, what it looks like to be a good steward of our money. And thirdly, we do have the financial literacy flashcards, which I meant to bring some of those as well, that just give basic money terms, like things that everybody should know, like what is an asset, what does your net worth look like, because when we all sit down and look at our net worth, we might be surprised that our net worth is not what we think it is.
I know money. That ain't what I want it to be. It will be.
You know, because we think, hey, I'm making a bunch of money, but then you're like, okay, well, what's your assets minus your liabilities, which is what net worth is. And then you're like, oh, shoot, man, I got that student loan, I got a few credit cards, got all this stuff that makes me kind of negative in my net worth. So maybe I should kind of retweak and reconfigure some things so I know where I'm truly at. And so those flashcards are also available on my website. We'll walk people through, those simple terms. And like I said, my sons have been around it their entire lives, just little stuff, little bits and pieces. What do they call it? Osmosis, learning by osmosis or something like that. And they might be running around, because Ethan. Ethan, when he was little, if he was in here, he'd be swinging from the ceiling right now. But he's taking in everything and he's processing everything that we have going on just by learning by osmosis.
Yeah. Now, we say when you come to the cookout, man, you're going to leave with more than food on your plate, man. Like, what do you want our viewers or listeners to take away from today's episode, man?
Man, I just want them to take away that, like we said, stay in your own lane. Don't compare yourself to the next person's journey. Because each journey is your own. And I found myself doing that a lot, where I was like, man, I'm looking on social media, this person's making it, that person's making it, not understanding what they've gone through, number one, to get there. Number two, how much of it is actually real. And until you start to crack into these people's finances, you don't know until you actually look and see, okay, well, that was a front. You know what I mean? And so stay in your lane, understand that it's your journey, and also, you have to start. Everybody starts somewhere. You can't just sit back on the sidelines and say, well, I'm too late. It's never, ever, as long as you're breathing, it is not too late. And I tell my parents the same thing. I was like, it's never too late. Like, we can start this thing today, and we're going to figure out a way for you to retire when you want to sit back and put your feet up on the beach while you still can. And so understanding, start somewhere, put your pride to the side and actually go ask those questions. Talk to somebody. Seek the help that you need so that you can get where you want to be. They always say, live like no one else today so you can live like no one else tomorrow. And all that means is if you got to sacrifice some things today, if I got to miss going to the club, I did it in college. If I got to miss going to the club so I can stack my money, I'm going to do it because now look how I'm living. Now that I actually can afford to go out and go to the club or do whatever I want to do, leave the country, I can afford to do that comfortably, not worry about, well, my grades are slipping. Well, I spent all my money in Turks and Caicos while I'm in college because I knew I couldn't afford it. But understanding, like I said, putting that pride to the side, setting up your budget, tweaking that budget when you need to, and living within your means and staying in your lane.
Yeah. What you want?
I would just say, man, be curious, man. Find, Google. He talked about, like, I think that's the biggest thing in all these conversations we have is, don't just we rely so much today on social media, and a lot of it is not as real as you think, man. And so be curious to find these people, like the finance doctor and others that can teach these things, and find credible people, man. And the information is out there. It's so much, and you can find a lot of this stuff without having to pay for it through just Google, like he said. So be curious to find these things. And like he said, don't use excuses. There's so many resources and things out there for us to be able to make the progress that we're looking for.
Yep. Yeah. I think, man, I know it's kind of hard to be like, man, how do I save? How do I invest when I'm trying to live paycheck to paycheck? But I think, like, the most intrinsic value money adds is, like, it gives you free time. So when you talk about, like, I need to learn how to, my money make money for me, while, like, I don't need to always be on the job. Like, how do I find ways that my money's making money for me? That passive income. And like you said, like, there's free applications out there. And even if you start with $2, just start. You feel what I'm saying? I'm just starting. So I'm right there with you on this journey. So don't be afraid to start, whether it was $2, $200, $2,000. Just start. Be okay with delayed gratification. Appreciate y'all rocking with us. Like I say, hit that share, like, subscribe button. Appreciate you sitting down and coming to the cookout with us.
We out.